Hello again, everyone, and very welcome to Chapter 5. Today, we are going to discuss loops and files, which is really beneficial in C++ programming. If you know how to use conditional statement, as we have discussed in Chapter 4, and in addition to that one, how to put a condition maybe in repeat, which simply means loop, and of course, how to get access to external files in programming. Here we are using Visual Studio, and of course, you can use other softwares later, but the purpose of this course is just, for the purpose of this course, is just Visual Studio, but you can use C++ in other softwares as well. So if you can get access to external files and you can read and write data and information, either from an external file, should be a read, or maybe export your information, which is generated initially inside the Visual Studio in, like, for example, a text file, and get access to it out of Visual Studio, that would be awesome. This is beneficial again for many, many different purposes. Suppose that you are working in a company, a firm, or even you are a grad students or even undergrad students who are going through some testing procedure, let's say in automotive company. Suppose that you are working on battery management system. You are going to look at the temperature of the battery during the performance, let's say during charging or discharging, either. Or you are designing an automotive and you are going to look at the speed of automotive, maybe during 1 hour, how it change, how it impact like the temperature or heat generation inside the motor or something like that. For all of these purposes, you need to use conditional statement, you need to use looping in order to, for example, you have to command the software that continue reading the temperature maybe for 3 hours, continue reading the voltage change, the current change in a situation. I just touched battery management system, maybe for an hour, or during the charge, or maybe for during charge and discharge, which may take a couple of hours, and it's a factor of using which kind of voltage and current you are going to charge and discharge. So in order to do all of this as an engineer to become, definitely you need to learn how to repeat a process without human interaction. Suppose even in automotive company, you are asked to try and maybe perform some test on a seat in order to sit for an automotive, in order to check the durability of that seat. In automotive company, later definitely you are gonna just maybe be in there or any other company. If you are, for example, going to check the durability of the seat, driver seat, let's target driver seat or passenger seat, they are using robots. This example, which I'm offering right now, is a combination of both automation and automotive. Definitely it's gonna be practical for both students in either of these categories or programs. So students supposed to, I mean, engineers in companies supposed to program the robot. Usually there is a weight attached to the arm of the robot, and like how heavy that weight could be is a function of which kind of seat or which kind of brand of automotive they are going to test. Each automotive industry, they do have their own testing procedure. Definitely, robot must be programmed to repeat just hitting that seat using that weight, for example, 10,000 times in 1 week. Suppose that a human supposed to stay in here and each time just grab that weight and hit the seat to make sure that this seat is durable enough and it's not gonna rip or it's not gonna be maybe damaged after 10,000 time use in a week. Therefore, they are programming a robot. I myself have that experience, and I used to program a robot for such a purpose. Guys, can you see my screen? Do you mind confirming? Yeah, okay. So I used to, thank you very much. I used to do that for a KUKA robot. KUKA is the name of a robot, or it can be Siemens or ABB robot. We have different type of robots. You guys, as an automation students, later you are gonna have such courses to become familiar with different robots and how to program them. So looping and getting access to external file, either to read into it or write into it, is gonna be so much beneficial. Therefore, pay, learn this chapter, enjoy it, and use it for different purposes, regardless of what would be the application. Definitely in any job, any student project, you are gonna be required to use this knowledge and information. So I'm gonna start with two terms: incrementing, decrementing. These are something I touched them in the first few chapters. Now I'm going to give you more detail. What does it mean when I say increment or decrement in C++ programming? Please go ahead, open your Visual Studio, as I want you to stay focused, not only to listen, at the same time to practice and learn with me as well. This is going to be the most effective method of learning programming, to see everything practically. That will help you to remember all the knowledge and information. So, simple. Increment means addition, means summation. In C++ programming, as I have mentioned in here, anytime that you are going to use increment operator, you use plus plus, like this. If you are going to use otherwise, means decrement, very similar. The only difference is you make it minus minus, means you are going, if you are incrementing, suppose you are going to increment from 0 to 10. This is going to be your mean. This is going to be your max. If you are going to increment from 0 to 10, means each time 1 will be added to the minimum. For example, if you're starting from 0, if you say increment, this one means plus 1. Increment plus plus means plus 1. It will add 1. Next time, it will add 1. So here it's going to be 0 plus 1 is 1. Next time, it will add 1 to the latest one. So 1 plus 1 will become 2. Next time, it becomes 2 plus 1. And this will continue until number 10, until 9 plus 1 become 10 in this example. That's what we call it increment. Now, decrementing is exactly opposite. You can see it right in here. For decrement, I'm gonna start from maximum and I'll continue to reach the minimum. When I say minus minus, means decrement by 1 each time, means 10 minus 1, 9. Next time, 9 minus 1, 8. And continue this process until you reach 0. So that's what we call it, increment and decrement operator. Now, how do I write it down? In programming. In programming, any variable. In this example on my screen, I use val. Val is not a keyword, it's just simply a variable. That variable plus plus. Like for example, I do have a variable as integer x. This is my variable. And next, I'm gonna increment it. So I would say x plus plus. That's how I increment it. Still, there is more, but I'm gonna just show that part. So I would say x plus plus. Or you can say plus plus x. This is what we call it increment. And it should be otherwise for decrementing. I should say, for example, if I'm going to decrement y, I would say y minus minus or minus minus y. This is how I decrement. So there is a difference between having the minus or plus before or after. If I have it before, I call it prefix. If I have it after, I call it postfix, a variable. That's the difference, right? So if I have it like this is after val, I call it postfix. But if I have it like this is prefix. That's the difference between these two. Now, let's put this together in an example to see how I can use incrementing and decrementing in C++ programming. Please open your Visual Studio and get your hands busy while I am doing it on the screen. Try to do it with me and make sure if there is any concern, any question, if you need any clarification, get me involved. I'll be more than happy to assist accordingly. So, like always, I'm gonna start with creating my template. For regular programming, if I don't need to do any adjustment for the screen, I don't need IO manip. So IO stream is mandatory, always leave it in there using namespace. It's not mandatory to have using namespace, but it is mandatory to get access to std. Either you can have it in a single line like mine in line 4, or you can start adding std colon colon to the beginning of every single line, which is time consuming. That's not my preference, but I share with you. You can, instead of having line 4 in here, keep repeating std colon colon at the beginning of every single line of your code. And then this is my main function, which I'm going to start defining my variables and any definition for the procedure like mathematical operation or logical operation, whatever I need inside the body of my main function. Let's start. I'm going to clearly go ahead and using just one single number, such as number 4, practice with you how I'm going to use the plus plus or increment and minus minus or decrement operators. So I start with defining my variable to be just num standing for number. I'll give it number 4, right? And right after that, let me just maximize my screen to make sure that you guys can see better. Right after that, I'm gonna go ahead and give it a little more details to ensure that how to you can learn how to increment. So I'm going to display the value in num. Display means I need to see out. See out any message. In this example, I'm going to say variable num is, so I'm going to say num is anything. For me, it's number 4. So I'm going to get out of here and call num, because num is my variable, to get access to the num and print it out right in front of num. Like, for example, up to this point, if I debug, I should say num is 4, because num is right after here. Num is assigned to 4, therefore it's going to be printed right in front of it. And right after that, either and L or \n to move to the next line. Next, I'm gonna ask, I will now start incrementing. So I'm gonna see out for myself a message to say, start incrementing, right? And get out of here either again, add maybe \n. I'm gonna start creating more space to show you how do I create 2 line. If I want 2 line space, then I have to add 2 \n and then close it with semicolon. So right after that, I'm gonna use postfix. So I'm gonna leave a message. Use postfix. I just said postfix means plus plus should be after variable. What my variable is? My variable is num. If I'm gonna do postfix, I would say num plus plus and then semicolon. This is simply postfix. I'm gonna leave this comment right in front of this. Use postfix to increment. How do I do it? I say num plus plus. Now I'm gonna display it. So I would say cout and any message that I need to appear before the display. So I would say Now since I'm incrementing, if it was 4 and I have plus plus means 4 plus 1. 4 plus 1 becomes 5. Then I'm gonna say new number is, and that new number again is gonna be access to num. So I have to say num and then and this is how I increment, or I would say in this example, how I start from 4 and I increment each time by 1. So plus plus means plus 1, minus minus means minus 1. This is how it works. So I'm done with postfix. Everybody hopefully learn how to use postfix. I can just add another comment in here, maybe for myself to now see out another comment, since I'm gonna start decrement, or I'm gonna, before that, I'm gonna give you another increment, but with prefix. Let me say prefix. Let's practice before moving from here, prefix. Next time I'm gonna say plus plus num. Plus plus num in here means, I'm gonna leave a comment, use prefix to increment. So it's the same, just plus plus is gonna move to before. Now let me just even have another cout to go ahead and print this one. Now I would say now or new, or let's say this is first new number. First new number, I'm gonna just add one term to, after display, give you a better, this is second new number is, I do the same, I call number or num, and then I do and L. This is how I practice. How do I postfix? How do I prefix in order to increment something? So far you learned postfix and prefix. Now let's practice decrement. This is, both of them are increment. Now let's practice decrement. Very similar. I should say num and then minus minus. And I'm gonna leave myself use, again, this is going to be postfix, but to decrement, not increment anymore. And I'm gonna use cout, very similar, to print out first new num is, again, I have to get access to num. Is everyone practicing with me? And L. So I do the same for prefix to decrement. Prefix to decrement means minus minus num semicolon, and I'm gonna leave a comment in here, use prefix to decrement, and I'm gonna display it. Cout, go ahead and print out second new num is, get access to num, so type num and L. Here we go. I'm done. So very simple. We define a number. In this example 4, we are going to add 1 by each time, call it postfix, prefix, and then we are going to decrement accordingly. So this is how we practice. And finally, we are going to see the output each time. So let's check the code. We see there is no issue. I'm going to minimize to make sure everyone can see the whole code at the same time. You guys can see the whole code at the same time. Validate yours. Make sure you don't have any error. Everything looks fine, and then hit debug. At this point, I'm expecting to first see number 4, then being incremented, become 5, and then decrement. Okay, let me maximize and study with you. So first number is 4. Now I'm going to start incrementing. For incrementing, first new number, 4 plus 1 is 5. And then again, I incremented using prefix. So 5 plus 1 is 6. Then I started decrementing. Decrementing, so then means 6 minus 1. 6 minus 1 is again 5. Then 5 minus 1 is 4. Make sense? In line 9, somebody is asking line 9. In line, this is line 9. I don't have anything in line 9. My line 9 is empty. Backslash n in here is just for display. I just created some space in here. I just wanted a little space. Since I wanted 2 line of space, I added 2 line. If you want 1 line, you can add 1 line. So this is how we increment and decrement. Let's go back to the lecture slide. Next, there are situations that we want to do the increment process and decrement process right inside the cout. Very similar to the time that I'm calling right in here, nom, instead of having the increment and decrement separated or like in a single line, I can go ahead and say cout nom plus plus. I can have it in here. Or I can say in here plus plus. Or maybe minus minus. So you can even do it inside the cout line. That's another method of doing it. So either will work. Okay? Either will work. There are situations that I'm going to put them inside the equation. How do I do that? So I'm going to just clean up maybe this part. And I'm going to practice only for this one. Now I have nom. So nom is 4. But there are situations I have number 1 and number 2, and I'm going to add them together. In that case, I'm going to just add another one. This, I call it number 1. I'm going to create another variable, call it, in here, call it number 2, and I'm going to assign number 2 to 5. So now this is going to be number 1, and this is going to be number 1. One way, as I mentioned earlier, is going to be like that. Now, another way is another method in here. I'm going to clean up right in here. So start incrementing. This is just optional. Then I'm going to say another integer is sum. I'm going to call another integer sum. And then right in here, I'm going to say sum is assigned to num1 plus num2. Then I'm going to increment both of them at the same time. Then I can say plus plus semicolon. Right? That's another method. Or I can say, I can put them inside the conditional statement. For example, if a statement. I can say if num, remember yesterday we had, for example, in chapter 4, we had, for example, if the value, it was 95, if anything above 95 as a score, then give me letter A. right? Or say congratulations. Same in here. You can say if num1 plus 1 has like is meeting the limitation, then either post operate it or post fix it or prefix it or just go through the condition. Next is gonna be about looping. Remember I said there are situations you're working in a firm, in a company. You have been asked to just test, do some testing, do some investigation for some engineering project. Therefore, you may go through the same process. You may need to go through the same process over and over, which is overwhelming to do it manually as a human. So you can simply go ahead, create a loop or create a program using a loop in order to repeat that same process for you over and over to save time, not only save time, also to be able to have more accurate information, because usually during a repeated process human go through some mistakes. So how do I do it? Either I can use while or I can use for loop, right? So let's practice both of them. But definition of a loop is any time we are going to repeat a process in a program, we have to put it inside the loop, means repeat it, go over it until it's just satisfied with the condition. How do I define it? If I'm practicing while loop, so I have to mention while. While is a keyword. As soon as you type it, color will change. I have to open parentheses. Any variable or expression that I have to put it right in here. Suppose that I'm having an integer again, be num assigned to 4. Now, if I wanted to create a while loop, I have to in here, for example, include num. While num, let's say while num greater than 3, this could be an expression. Then I need some statement. Cout. This is a simple example to see the application of while. Let's say cout, maybe congratulations. And just end out. That's it. Now, if you go ahead, this is how we define a while loop, right? If you have more than one condition, very similar to if-else statement, if nested statement, or any conditional statement, definitely you may need to go ahead and open and close bracket. Also, even for one cout, it's fine. If you do it, you won't get error. But if you have more than one, if you are not going to include it, will get error. For one is optional, but for more than one, you must include bracket. Now, if I go ahead and debug, you may see cout congratulation. Num is 4, num is greater than 3. You may see congratulation. But I do need, see, congratulation. But congratulation, if you look at end of this, you can see it is continuously repeating and repeating. Why is that? Because I do not have any limitation. I just said, as soon as your num is greater than 3, just print out congratulations. This is doing it infinite. It's with no limit. Forever, it is continuously adding congratulations to my screen. Now, if I want it to be limited, definitely I have to add more detail to the, because this is a loop. Now my congratulation is inside the loop and there is no max for that loop. Since still my num is greater than 4, it will continue until my num is gonna, for any condition, my num is gonna be either above 4 or maybe with some decimal or something like that. That's what a loop can do. It can continuously go over the same situation until you stop it. Make sense? Now, we are going to practice, since that congratulation continuously is repeating and repeating, we are going to practice how to make the statement to have another condition as false to stop that, right? So at the same time, while, which is a loop, can be conditional as well, right? To not to be stuck inside that loop forever. That's where we are going to practice true condition, false condition. If true condition is there, if we don't stop it forever, it's gonna give me congratulations until something goes wrong and my number is not greater than 3 anymore. It's, for example, either 2 or 1 or negative or something with decimal or something like that. So that's what we call it. How it works. While loop is a loop that any statement you put in here will continue until the expression in here is true. Let's just add a little bit more information. I already mentioned num in here. For me, another example in here, very similar. For example, I'm going to say cout if num is greater than 3, cout congratulations. And then right after that, since we practice increment, then I can in here say num plus plus, right? And then right after that, I'm going to say now cout new number or anything. And L. So you can combine incrementing, decrementing with the loop. That's how we do it. Right inside, you can add or you can subtract. That's another one. So let's go ahead, practice this one again. So again, since my only condition in here is take the 3, take the 4, and still continue. Therefore, it's gonna continue forever. There is no stop. Still, I'm seeing congratulations because anyway, my condition is 3. If I want to limit it, how do I do? I have to add more condition. So I have to say, for example, num is greater than equal to 3 and remember, yes, in the previous chapter we practiced and num is equal to 4. If I add this condition, since anything after 4 it becomes 5, definitely I'm gonna have some changes. Let's go ahead and practice this one. Now you can see I do have only one congratulation. So I stop the loop as soon as num is gonna be incremented. And instead of having many congratulations forever, I only have one because I'm gonna meet this condition only one time. I'm looking for a number greater than equal 3, but still equal to 4. So I do have only one number, so only one congratulation. As soon as the number 4 is going to be incremented and becomes 5, then my number is not equal to 4 anymore, so I don't have congratulation in a loop anymore. Make sense what happened in here? And how to put a condition in a loop, how to limit it, how to customize it based on your requirements. Next, we already practiced this one. We already practiced all of those. Let's look at while for input validation. How do I validate my input in a while loop? So look at this example. I'm going to have a number exactly very similar to what I have in here. So my number is 4. I have it as a constant number inside the code, but still you can have it like this. You can say int num, and then you can see, you can have cout, the num is, you can have this command as a cout, and then you can, for example, add maybe a colon in here and backslash. No, you may want to have it in front of it, and then endl. And then right after that, you can cin num. So now you are going to ask the user to give you a number. You don't have a number. So this is how you do input validation. Anyway, your number is supposed to be, I'm gonna have this one too to give you more option. So I'm gonna have number, while my number is greater than equal to 2 or less than, or very easy, equal to 4, still say congratulations. Now let's practice this one. So this is how I can validate my input. Simply means if I'm going to have any number above 4, I'm not gonna stay inside the loop. I'm gonna stop the loop accordingly. First, I'm gonna try with 2. Okay, since 2 is still like inside the loop, then it's asking me, it's moving me out of, loop, which is new num. If I want what is the new num, I can just simply add another num in here. If I add a num, it will give me what is the new num. And I can go ahead and print the new number as well. Next, let's practice counter. So far, I explained what is loop. Loop means any process, like the one right in here, which is going to repeat something for me based on the condition being added inside the while, inside the parenthesis called expression. How about counter? Counter means for how many times you want that process to be repeated. Instead of defining, for example, this much complicated, or maybe even later in other advanced programs, more complicated process, you can simply say, just count it. Just do it 100 times. Do it 5 times. Do it 10 times. That way you don't need to have a lot of condition being added to your loop. And that's what we call it counter. So let's practice. How do we use a counter? So I'm going to define again some integer. Maybe I'm going to call it, you can have it constant or you can leave it as integer the way that I have it. This is going to be my minimum num. So I'm going to say integer num1 is assigned to 1. Then I can add a maximum. Num, let's say num, maybe mean. And this one I'm going to call it num max. My maximum number is going to be 10. So now I do have a range. So I'm assigning what my range is. The start number is a start from 1 and a stop at 10. Now I'm going to define a counter. How do I define a counter? In order to define a counter, first I have to again say integer num. Num in here is going to be my starting from my minimum number assigned to num underscore mean. And this is the way I define my counter. This is how you define your counter. So first define your minimum, define your maximum num, and num is assigned to norm minimum, means start from minimum norm. Starting from 1, reaching 10 is giving you something. It's giving you 10, right? Therefore, your counter means repeat. Repeat it 10 times. From 1 to 10. That's how you define your counter. Now, next you wanted to see out the same thing. In order to see out, so you can say see out the norm is, but norm in here is counter. Norm is very similar to that. In order to clean up or maybe create some space, you can say see out. This is just something cosmetic. You can add asterisks to create a line. You can add hyphen, plus, whatever. I'm going to add some asterisks and then backslash n. This is not for technical. This is only for display. And right after that, I'm going to say while my num, let me just conditional this one, is less than equal to my num underscore max. So simply means start from num mean and continue until it is either less than or equal to 10. Then I'm going to say cout num. Cout num means the counter. And then right in here, I'm going to say just backslash t, backslash t. And now you can see what is backslash t. Give me a second. Now, I'm going to do some math before I do the handle. So I'm going to say now take num multiply by num. Take num multiply by num. Right? So this is how I do it. And next, increments. So this is going to be increment. Num is counter, right? So it's going to be increment the counter. And I don't need this line anymore. So let me explain one more time. I define my range. This is my range. Minimum and maximum. Then I defined my counter. Then I started some cout, a little bit of maybe work in order to have a nice cout. And then I'm going to conditional. So my expression in here is take that num, which is going to be the counter, and continue counting until you reach less than equal 10, because my maximum number is 10. And then in here, I'm going to say, create some space. This the backslash t is going to give me some space. And then get the num, which is the counter, times num, and then just increment it. Now let's debug. So look at here. This is exactly what I asked for. The num is then some asterisks. Then look at here. It's taking the num backslash t, taking some space between the two lines. And then each time, for example, if it is 2, 2 by 2 is 4. Why is that? Because I have this expression right in here, num times num. If it is 3, 3 times 3, 4 times 4, and so on. Now makes sense? A little bit of just work on the screen using backslash t means just some space, add some space, tap. And here this asterisk to create some line for me. Any questions so far? Everyone clear? Thank you for the feedback. So let's have a pause. Meanwhile, I'm going to take care of anyone who asks question, and then we'll continue. Now let's look at do while loop. So far, we practiced how to put together some lines of code in order to repeat a process inside the while loop. Very similar to what we had as a discussion for conditional statement. Remember, we had multiple methods in order to put maybe an object, a situation in a conditional statement, such as if else, if nested, and so on, switch, right? Same for while. If I want to have more command being added, or let's say if I want to make it a bit more detailed, I can use do while loop. Do while loop still, it is a loop, but I'm going to command it with more detail. Do this loop, for example, until something. For example, I already have while, so I'm going to go ahead and add do at the beginning. So do while loop is again commanding the loop before starting the loop. So I can go ahead command the loop before I enter the loop. I'm going to say do something means do cout, do I don't know, some summation, some incrementing, decrementing, then I start the loop block. That's what we call it, do while. So one example could be like, for example, since I already have the while, I can go ahead. Remember yesterday we had some example for few scores. I mean in chapter 4, in recording for chapter 4, you can find it that I practice with you a code in order to have 3 scores. Either you can go back to that one and put it into do while loop, or I'm gonna just do it right away in here with existing code that I have. So I'm gonna say I'm having some integer for minimum maximum, and then I'm gonna have some counter in here. Now, very simple. I'm gonna say do, instead of having the cout before, to make it easy, I'm gonna have it after. Means do the cout, and then I'm gonna go ahead even increment. I don't need this one. Guys, if I need it, I'm going to bring it back to remind you. If I need it, if I need 2 line, I must go ahead. Remember I said anytime I have more than one, I have to open bracket. That's the reason that I get underlined red. If I have only 1 line, I don't need curly bracket. But anytime you have more than one, you must have your curly bracket. So I'm going to say do some cout. And of course, you can even have some cin. I'm going to get rid of this line. And instead of that, I'm going to say cout, the num is, and then cin. I'm going to simplify here instead of counter. I'm going to define some num1, num2, and num3 to make it easier to process. And then I'm going to calculate average. Average, usually I do have some decimals, so I say double average. This is going to be my average. And then I'm going to have some character. And I'm going to call it again. So now I'm going to say do cout. The num is whatever the numbers are, or you can say the nums are, because now I do have 3 of them. And then right after that, I need to cin them. Cin num1, num2, and num3. And right after that, you can go ahead and close it with semicolon. This is my do. So I'm gonna cout nums are, and then cin have all 3 numbers right inside. And then right after that, since I'm looking for average, I'm gonna do the calculation for average. Average is assigned to num1 plus num2 plus num3. This is going to be my average divided by 3 because I've got 3 numbers. This is how I calculate my average. Either you can write 3 or you can write 3.0. Either of them will be correct. And right after that, I'm gonna just have C out the average, or you can just write C out average, just simple. And this is C out. C out supposed to be this way. C out average and del. This is going to be your average. And right after that, you can see in again means another numbers. Again means another. This is a character, just seen again. That's it. Now, I'm going to start my while. So I already defined my do. If I have only one line, I don't need the curly bracket. If you do have multiple line the way I have, then you must enclose them inside a curly bracket. Then start your while. Inside the while, why do I want in here? I'm going to say seen again, and then I'm going to say again equals to character Y, right? Or, remember we practice or in chapter 4, or again equal to lowercase y. This is while. While again is a character, is either of this. Go inside the while, and now I can just finish it up right in here. I don't need a loop because it's only one line. Therefore, this is my only line, and return 0. So let me summarize it for you. I'm starting a code in here to average 3 scores as num1, num2, and num3. And then I'm going to repeat as many times as the user wishes. Means anytime that the user wants during the compilation. Let's do that. So first I have to enter the nums. What are the nums? I'm gonna use, these are scored, so I'm gonna use anything about like nums for 56, maybe 78 out of 100, suppose that these are out of 192. Next, it will go ahead and calculate the average for me, which is 75. And then look at here, still it is blinking, means I can add another few numbers. Suppose that I'm gonna use 65, 59, 70. Again, I have that one. So it will continue while y or y, right? This is how a do while will work. So do while is gonna take the average. It's gonna calculate the average. It's gonna get you to be print out like here, and it's gonna give you again, seen again. Another 3 numbers. And that numbers could be any numbers you want without limitation. Next, let's practice do while loop. Again, it's just going to give you option in order to just enter other numbers. Maybe another 3 numbers, the way I did. Look at here. I'm going to show you. So I started 3 numbers. So I gave it 3 numbers. The average is calculated. And then I'm asking, do you want to average another set? If I say Y, if I don't say anything, any of Y or N, it will give me 1. But if I say any of this, either capital Y or lowercase, it will continually give me the option, let's practice, it will continuously give me the option to enter another 3 sets of numbers. So for example, first, I'm gonna go ahead, give it like 52, 28, 98. And then if I say yes, it will give me the noms are, again means, since I said y, because I said until again is y, means until the character is y. If I have the character y, with no limitation, I can enter another 3 sets. For example, another 3 sets like this, like this. And now again, if I say y again, it will give me another option to repeat as many as I want. But if I don't say y, it will give it to me only one time, the way that did first try. Makes sense now? So as long as I have either capital Y or lowercase y, I'm going to get the option to enter another 3 sets of number and calculate the average and be displayed. That's why I said it will continue until the user wants. Make sense? Perfect. So next, I'm going to look at for loop. Remember, even for looping, so far we have practiced just while, then we practiced do while, and now it's time to practice another method of looping. You can pick either of this method based on the application. There are situations for the same subject, for the same problem to solve. You can use either, but there are situations that you have only one solution for that single case. So there is no rule, there is no regulation. It's a factor of which kind of problem you are trying to solve. So you cannot ask me which one is the best option to choose. It's a factor of which kind of program you are going to provide. Now, for loop structure is very similar to while, simply means I'm going to clean up and practice for loop. In order to start, general format is you type for, you open your parentheses, you include your expression that could be like, for example, any variable, any a statement, any condition or something like that. And then you go ahead, you start your condition. If it is one, just you don't need curly bracket. If it is more than one, open your curly bracket and define all of your conditions or the situation that you want to loop it inside the curly bracket. So this is the general structure. Now, again, for loop, very similar to while loop, is going to continue until the situation is true. Means until any statement being added inside this parenthesis, still it is true. As soon as the condition is false, program will get out of the for loop and there is no repeat right after that. For example, let's practice this one. I'm going to go back to lab 1. This is the time that, let me see if I have that question right in here to help you with a little bit of more information about that. For, okay, question 1, remember we practiced it together. It was a for loop for lab 2. It was about defining a variable to be like pi and then calculating the radius. How about other questions that I had in there for you? Okay. Lab 2. So question 3 is asking you use file, some numeric processing, and then go ahead and look at chapter 5. Chapter 5 is the one that we are just looking at right now, and learn how to use the file. So I'm going to get you to this point. In question 2, I was asking you to define your range and put it inside the for loop, start from 0 and continue until, this is the lab question for lab 2, and continue until 200. So let's practice something similar. I'm going to start a constant number. In there I used maybe some pi. You can use anything similar. In here I'm going to just have minimum maximum as I had for the previous example. Let me see if I can bring back the previous example of minimum maximum. To save time. Yeah, this is the one that I did it a few minutes ago. So I'm defining my minimum to be 1, my maximum to be 10. Right after that, I'm defining another integer to be num. I don't need a counter anymore, so I'm going to edit it and say just num. And right after that, I'm going to see out number squared number squared, maybe either endl or backslash n. And then right after that, you can again add some maybe fancy stuff right in here. I don't practice that anymore since we already did it in order to clean up your screen. Now I'm going to practice for. How do I create a for loop? Let's do it together. I'm going to start with for. Before we did it with while. Now we are going to do it with for. It's the same example. Remember I said same example, same problem can be solved one more time. Either using while or you can use it with, you can solve it with a different looping. This time I'm going to practice the same example with for loop. So I open for parentheses for the for loop. I'm going to call it that num, and I'm going to assign it to, I already said this num is going to be the counter. I'm going to assign it to minimum, which is num mean, and I'm going to continue until it is equal to or less than 2 maximum. In this case, it's going to be 10. Make sure between these two, I have to include semicolon, not comma. That's important. Then I have to say num less than equal to num underscore max. And this is the time, again, I can in here practice another thing that we already learned, which is incrementing. Right inside the expression for loop, I can say even num plus plus. Means first read the num, assign it to minimum, which is 1. Continue like the process is a loop until your num is 10, and each time take that num, add 1, right? So this is what I want. Right after that, I can say now cout num, and again, I'm gonna use backslash t in order to create some space or tab. So I can this time practice maybe 3 of them. 3t, another t, another t, another t. Each time I add 1 extra t means a space between the 2 columns becomes more and more, right? I added just 1 more to show you there is no limit. It's totally your choice. It's totally your option. And then right after that, I'm going to say now go ahead again, do the same. Num times num. We already had this for the previous method, so that's why I'm going to do it exactly the same. And then close it and move to the next line. This is it. So let's see. I'm going to get the num starting from 1, continuing until I hit 10, and I'm gonna starting 1 plus 1, then becomes 2. 2 plus 1 becomes 3 until I am 10. That's what I'm asking. Let's do that. So look at here, it's exactly the same. It's doing 1, then 2 times 2, because I do have it in here. But this time, remember, I added 1 extra /t. That's why I'm having a wider table, right? The distance between the 2 columns, it becomes a bit more since I have 3 /t. And then 2 times 2, 4 times 4, and 9 times 9 until I have 10, then 10 times 10. Make sense what I did? So I did the same problem. I solved the same problem using 2 different looping process. One was while, and this time I practiced it using for. So you can get the same results using different method. Hopefully it's clear for everyone. Anyone who needs extra explanation or clarification, feel free to ask. I'm going to pause for a moment for you. Anything? Good. So next, let's, you already practiced all of them. We did this one. We did this one. Look at keeping a running total. Keeping a running total means simply go inside the loop and each time do some calculation until the loop is true. That's what we are going to practice right now. So I'm going to use while, which is a loop. This is going to be considered as an accumulator. Why is that? Because look at here, I'm calculating some number in here and then I keep incrementing it. So that's why it says accumulator. Until I start from 1 until I am seeing equal or less than 10. That's what we call it, accumulator. We can do the same right in here. I can go ahead, get rid of this for loop to show you how accumulator is working. I already have the minimum number, so I'm gonna just have it like sum, very similar to what I have in there, and I'm gonna start from 0 and maximum num, let's leave it as 10, and I'm gonna create another while loop. While my num max is less than equal 10, go inside the loop. Go inside the loop. Stay in here and do sum plus equal num max. And continue accumulating this one with num max plus plus. Semicolon. So how does this work? This is going to just each time look at the sum and continue accumulating it. Like what? Like this. I'm gonna go ahead. It will start from 0. Oh, I forgot to add some cout. Let me add some cout. Cout, anything that I have for sum. Either you can say just sum to simplify, or I can say sum of the numbers. And I'm gonna get access to sum first, and then I'm gonna end L. So now I'm gonna debug. So sum of the numbers 10. How many numbers do I have? Is 10. Now, if you want to customize it, you can add some cin. If you add cin, then it will be a factor of what you are going to enter as an user interaction. Any question? When I say add C in, I already have one example in here. I can explain it. So you can go ahead, have a variable for the numbers instead of having one number. Then if you have a C in, each time that you change it, this for loop in here is going to be accumulated accordingly. But if you have a constant number, the way I do have right in here, it's going to consider just that single number that you do have it inside the code. Another thing that we are going to practice is sentinels. Generally, sentinels in C++ is a value which is going to signal the end of the process. Why we have to learn it? Because so far we learn how to put a process in a loop to repeat if we do have a counter based on the counter. If we do not have a counter, to repeat until the condition is true. That's why we need to learn about sentinels, which is that the signal that it is showing the end of that data sequence or data looping or range. End of data range or data sequence in here is 10. In any other condition could be another thing. So any signal that it is showing the end of a data sequence, that's what we call it sentinels, end of the loop. Usually we use it for either looping or algorithms to figure out what's the time or what's the maximum number or how long we have to go through this loop and keep repeating it and repeating it and repeating it. So now let's look at that one. Like for example in here, I already have one. 10 in here is sentinel. Simply means this is a signal that I have to continue until that my sum is 10, which you just saw it that it was just one time process and it showed me, okay, my sum, it was calculated was 10. My counter in here was 10, starting from 0. Here in this example, you can see it's going to be -1, -1. So I start in here, total number of a point. I'm going to calculate a point. Total number in here until I see not equal to -1. So continue until you are not above this.